Thank you, and good morning to everyone. We're going to begin our next roundtable session, and I just want to clarify one thing real quick. This session is on stories from other states. So we're going to define other than Utah. So the stories here will be from three different states, three different regions of the country. I think President Holland did an amazing job of assembling our panel, this panel here, because we have, again, three different states, three different regions of the country. We have three universities or colleges of varying different sizes, from 63,000 in Broward to 11,000 to 3,000. I'm sorry, 6,000. So we got quite a variety in terms of institutions that are represented here today, as well as their location. So let me introduce our panel this morning. We have Dr. Tim Foster, president of Colorado Mesa University from Grand Junction, who will be our first speaker. Then we'll have David Armstrong, the president of Broward College in Fort Lauderdale. And I think it's noteworthy that we had some conversation in the last session about Florida and its community college transition into the baccalaureate. And my understanding is that David was a major architect in that movement when he was serving as the commissioner of community college system in Florida. And then we have Margaret Ellaby, who is the chancellor of Pulaski Technical College in Arkansas. So the three of them will provide us with an overview of their institutions, how they address dual mission, the dual mission, and then certainly some organizational and some financial aspects of their university. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to President Foster.
I was just waiting to see if I could master the microphone, given what I've been watching today. Tim Foster from Grand Junction, Colorado, and I know that we have a variety of states, and so Colorado Mesa is located in what we refer to as the Grand Valley. To give you some sense, Carrie and I are from the western half of the state, and actually this little thing called the Rocky Mountains and the Continental Divide split our state in two, and we lie on this side of that particular obstruction, where there are, in a lot of places, more jackrabbits than people. And so we often refer to ourselves in Grand Junction, which lies about 20 miles from the Utah border. We really think that eastern Utah and western Colorado should secede and form our own state. We won't start that revolution right here today, but in fact, that's pending in some future time. So I was asked to describe Colorado Mesa University to you a little bit, and so I will tell you that we sit in a valley of about 200,000 people, and then flanked by a number of very prestigious ski towns, of which Cary has campuses: Aspen, Telluride, Vail, Steamboat, etc. The other piece I would tell you is, I think if you described CMU, I would do word like hardscrabble, salty, grit, baling wire and string, feisty, entrepreneurial. And then you stop with entrepreneurial, and I think we always go and listen to folks in higher ed, and the conversation is always how different we all are. And it makes me think of back to 1952, Norman Larson, who was president at a time of a little 3-person company called Rocket Chemical. And at the time, Howard Hughes had ordered several Convair 880s from General Dynamics. And when they delivered them, he refused to take delivery. And so they sat at their production facility in San Diego, which was fairly moist, and began to rust. And so General Dynamics reached out to Norm Larson, and he began to try to invent something that would help them with their problem. And his first formula, which was called water displacement number 1, didn't work. He then did water displacement number 2, which also didn't work. And it's really, I think his story is very much our story around this room, because it was water displacement number 40, known now as WD-40, which in fact ultimately worked. And I think we all just sort of stay with this concept of reinventing ourselves, trying to find things that work, trying to look at one another and see what it is that someone has a good idea that we can steal from. I will tell you, hopefully we all end up better than he did, because he sold the business for $20,000, no licensing, no royalties, because he was sure he'd invent something else, which he did. Green Giant Udder Ointment, which was not nearly the hit that WD-40 was. So, CMU, we are somewhat similar to UVU in terms of our joining the ranks of dual enrollment is more organic. We started back in the 20s as what we call in Colorado local district college. So the community assessed a property tax and created a junior college. At the time, went through a couple name changes and operated like that for 50 years. And I think a very proud piece of Grand Junction in the community, because obviously as a local district college, the board is local and they have control over their institution and they love it, embrace it. And then in the mid-1970s, that just wasn't enough. And so the question became, how do we, I have slides up, so if I can get that one to work, maybe I have to turn the power on. Let you see if you can figure it out. There you go. So in the mid-1970s, the question was, well, we would like to have four-year degrees, because four-year degrees are a long ways away in a little town called Gunnison, or across that range of mountains I described earlier into the Denver metro area. Now, of course, only in rural western Colorado is adding a four-year program somewhat controversial. And so the battle was joined. City leaders said, we can do a four-year degree in 3 years, which is a fascinating concept that they pitched to the legislature at the time, failed, ultimately prevailed. But the criticism was really twofold. We are a very good junior college, and we have to concede we will be a very soft or weak four-year. Why do that? And we'll lose control, because becoming a four-year school means we join the state system, and all these people on the other side of the mountain get to decide who governs our little hometown institution. Nonetheless, that happened, and so time goes on, and I think slowly but surely the four-year mission, and I think someone commented on this earlier, the four-year mission becomes the prestige and what everybody loves and focuses on, and it begins to devalue, and it did for us, the two-year mission. And so if you go to the early 90s, mid-90s, we start adding graduate degrees and enter into a fairly unique partnership with our local school district, where we actually created a board of cooperative services, a partnership where we took vocational and technical programs from all the area high schools, as well as on our two-year rolling mission, and put them on a campus. And the efficiencies are obvious. We buy one welding machine, one machining machine, automotive, etc., and then teach high school and college classes intermittently, combine them at times, and so that works very well. At the time, though, the strategy by the president was really, how do I get rid of this two-year mission and really go down this road of becoming a university, embracing the more prestigious mission that, of course, he thought made more sense. Hired faculty who were in that camp, and so drove towards that conclusion. Unfortunately, he forgot to take the temperature of the community, and so when he rolled out his grand plan of, I'm going to hand over this community college to the community college system in Colorado, he got beat up pretty roundly, soundly, and denied that opportunity. But now he's got an institution which he has put into a position of de-emphasizing two-year, emphasizing four-year and graduate. And where does he go from there? He went off to the state of Massachusetts in another presidency. Fast forward, we go through another president, and I end up coming to town to be the president of this university. Now, mind you, a little about me, and I'll diverge for a moment. From Grand Junction originally, went off to Denver, served in the legislature, was majority leader for a period of time, ran the Department of Higher Ed in the state of Colorado, and then began getting approached about presidencies, and so came back to Mesa. So having some sense as to this history of that institution, we then formed, what do you do on a campus? Form a committee. And we formed a committee, and they looked at, should we in fact take this two-year mission, stand it up on its own, and hand it off to the community college system, and let the university go its own direction. More about this in a moment, but we had a great example of that sort of institution in Colorado that did not work out very well for the institution that went down that road. Suffice to say, that particular group of folks looked at a lot of different things, but as business people, cost and duplication was foremost on their agenda. And so as they looked at it and saw the image of two presidents, two vice presidents of finance, academic affairs, admissions, registrar, and I think their biggest fear was two schools fundraising in that little community. They said, this makes no sense because you're probably going to duplicate administrative costs to, I think, a fairly conservative level at about $2 million. So the decision was made, all right, let's stay where we are and try to embrace both missions. So the institution I referred to earlier was at the time Southern Colorado State College, then became the University of Southern Colorado, now known as Colorado State University Pueblo. And so they split between CSU and Pueblo Community College. Handed Pueblo Community College the community college system. The two went their respective ways. Interestingly, at the time, SCSC was larger than Mesa by a fairly significant margin. And I will tell you that if you look at enrollment numbers, there we go, you will see that they have not fared well. And so, in fact, the enrollment at Mesa is at or above the enrollment of the two institutions combined. So you have PCC and CSU Pueblo. And in fact, CSU Pueblo's enrollment has been on a fairly steady decline throughout the next 20 plus years as they rolled out this model. I will also tell you that, in fact, I think it was an underestimation in terms of the duplication and cost. And as you can see, if you add up those bold numbers in the far right, you see a difference in cost between our administrative structure, PCC and CSUP, of almost $6 million, which in my world is a lot of money and can provide a lot of access. But I really think that the philosophy behind staying the way we were, I think, was more important. And so we had the big debate of, here we are Colorado Mesa University. How can we also be a community college? How can we provide vocational and technical degrees? How can you be open enrollment and at the same time, be, I think we call it moderately competitive or whatever the term is in Colorado, but harder to get into than a community college. We have faculty who complain about, oh my gosh, I have these really high performing students in my English 111 class, and I have these kids that are not well prepared and could not fog an academic mirror. And so we roll forward and said, part of that problem is, do people know that we have a community college in Grand Junction? So we played with, do we do a university college or do all these sorts of things that make lots of sense to everybody in this room and no sense to a student anywhere in that region. And so we did the horrible thing of letting marketing drive, and so we named them two different things. We are accredited as one institution, but in fact, as you can see, we have a logo for Western Colorado Community College. We have billboards, we advertise, talk about if you want that open enrollment, non-traditional, vocational, technical, whatever it is. We actually, when you apply to CMU as a student, if you don't meet our admission standards, we send you a rejection letter and tell you we forwarded your application on to Western Colorado Community College, and you fairly quickly get an acceptance letter from WCCC that says you've now been accepted to the community college. Why is that important? It seems like a lot of wasted paper, because students pay attention to what you tell them. And when you're admitted to CMU and you are not well prepared, you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm a university student, I'm ready to go. As compared to a community college student, by and large, where what you take needs to be limited, your remediation needs need to be accommodated early, and so we treat them differently. They're going to be in similar classes. In fact, we're not going to do WCCC English 111. We're going to combine those. We talked about tracking them into different sections, and it was funny because one of the most vocal critics of that was a good friend of mine who's on our sociology faculty. And so when we rolled that out and said, okay, here's one proposed solution, and she used to complain bitterly about, oh my gosh, I have these students who are really outstanding, and I have these students that are pulling my hair out to try and get them to succeed. She said, oh, don't do that. I love it. And my conclusion was, okay, you just like to complain about it. And so we won't change it because, in fact, both students have to get to the same point to be able to pass muster, right? And so we've aligned them just exactly that way, outwardly facing, so students think they're community college students. If they want to transfer and get a four-year degree, then in fact they apply and actually transfer. In addition, what you really see, and I should have put this up earlier, are two different doors in terms of where those students can go in and where they come out. If they want a vocational technical degree, they can get that. But it's also led us to do things like we adopted the first Bachelor of Applied Science in Colorado. And so that is where you take that vocational technical degree, allow it to be their major, and then give them rounding courses so that they in fact can walk out with a bachelor's degree. And so really embracing that as we have moved, and so making differentiations where we think the marketplace and people will react and respond better to it, and at the same time really recognizing that some of those students just need to realize that they can be successful in higher ed, and they are tremendously successful. And so we are the institution which is two faces. I will tell you that it is challenging for a WCC student taking English 111. They're going to pay CMU tuition. There is no way, in my opinion, for us to say we're going to do a WCCC English 111 and charge them less tuition, because I will tell you students are smart, and every CMU student would go over there and take those courses and then transfer them back. And so at the end of the day, those general ed courses are general ed courses taught by the same faculty, and so we charge the same tuition. We are in the midst of trying to figure out how to take our vocational technical tuition and drop it down to the level that our Colorado community colleges charge, but in fact I think that's one of the things that we are challenged with and working on. I think I'll stop there because I think you have a lot of panelists to hear from, but just a different approach. I'm amazed that the challenge in trying to launch and try to say to a four-year community, we're going to go ahead and pick up a two-year school and bring them in, because that would be a battle royale that I would not relish. So God love you guys in Wisconsin. Good luck. But if we can help you in any way, let us know.
Well, thank you. I don't have a PowerPoint today, so I may be powerless and pointless, but I'll try to add a few comments about what we have done in Florida. Although Sarah just did a great job, I think, of thank you, Sarah, for your good reporting on this issue of describing the multitude and wide range of, under the broad umbrella of dual mission models that there are. And Florida's is certainly very different from what you have done here in Utah. And I have to tell you, I'm just so impressed, President Holland, with this institution, what you all and all of your institutions have done here with support from policymakers, from the governor to the senator, you as a group of presidents who have, as someone said earlier on another panel, we should not try to be cookie cutters of the same kinds of institutions. We are here to respond to our students' needs and our community's needs, and all of our communities are different, and certainly we're that way in Florida. And we have to, of course, take into consideration the history and the culture, the governance structures that we have in our different states and communities. And so let me start with, from the state policy level, a little story about how we've gotten to where we are in Florida. Roughly 15 years ago, I was what's now called the chancellor of the community college system in Florida during Governor Jeb Bush's tenure as governor. Someone I still stay in touch with and we'll have lunch with next week, still very much involved in education reform initiatives in many states, perhaps some of yours. And he and our business sector really were the ones who proposed to me and our system that we need to take a look at filling the gaps and some workforce needs, if you will, that frankly our universities were not able to meet, or for a variety of different reasons, decisions purposefully on their part, or perhaps just decline in enrollments and programs, most notably during that time a massive growth in enrollment in our K-12 system and therefore need for teacher education. Similarly, the growth in Florida for people who are in my age bracket continuing to need more health care, the need for nurses. And in the case of our universities in Florida, our traditional, wonderful, outstanding research institutions and regional institutions that we have great partnerships with, their enrollments and their support for nursing and teacher education was going down and let's talk about mission creep. Nobody's had more mission creep in our state, I don't know about yours, than our universities. Every one of our universities want to have a law school and a medical school. And whether you call it Harvard Envy or whatever it is, their status is partially driven by those kinds of things, and that takes enormous amounts of resources. So we've had significant increase at even our regional, what used to be started off as only upper division undergraduate bachelor's degree institutions like Florida Atlantic University, 4 institutions, started off that way because of our strong partnership between our community colleges and them. So their mission crept to become bachelor's degrees, then master's degrees, and now I have to have a medical center and a law school. And so that has consumed major investment into higher education, while, by the way, policy members in the past, in some cases, have overlooked the need for the very important thing that we're talking a lot about here. The part of our mission is a community college, and we still consider ourselves a community college with an open door that still maintains that as our primary function, is in those technical and career areas. In fact, Senator, one of the things that I did after I became president of Broward College is go to our Senate president and propose a new funding stream for industry certifications within our institutions. So going down to the most micro level that has some value within our state for our business and industry and IT and healthcare and other areas like that. So we've set aside, our legislature fortunately has set aside $10 million for the last 5 years that we compete for the number of industry certifications that we grant to our students. We've embedded those now into our associate in science and technical certificate programs so that you get a true opportunity for students to take short-term certificates that have value. And I'm proud that our institution has led the state in all 5 of those years in earning down somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million every year that I put right back into those programs to grow those programs more to support business and industry. But back to the state level, 15 years ago, Jeb Bush, the chamber, our hospitals, and our school districts begged us to help solve their workforce needs. And so through a long discussion and a lot of contention and concerns, all of the issues that you already know that I don't have to repeat, enrollment fears, resource fears, mission creep, which I like to call mission alignment to the needs of our communities, because that's really our purpose, as well as helping, as Sarah said. I totally agree. Maybe our success should be judged on student access and student success and achievement, and I would add alignment to what the needs of our communities are. And so if missions creep to meet the needs of our communities, whether that's you need more doctors and therefore universities need a medical center, or we need teacher education programs at our community colleges and nursing programs at our community colleges, then that's an appropriate expansion of mission that is that has good outcomes and purposes. So we went through a long discussion over a couple of years. We finally put into place legislation that has lots of stopgaps to address some of these fears and concerns. I think, again, Sarah mentioned some of them. We have to go through a state-level review and approval process based on need and gaps and needs in the community before any of us can offer any specific degree. We have to collaborate with our local regional universities to see if they're interested in offering those degrees. So the result of that then is that we are very much targeted into workforce applied degrees for the most part. We're up to, I think now, about 250 or so degrees at I think 24 out of 28 of our state college institutions now that are offering bachelor's degrees, and there still are a few of our institutions who have not expanded into bachelor's degrees because they have a strong partnership. I'll also say, and again, Sarah, thank you for pointing out that University of Florida study. We predicted and believed from the state level that we could maintain that strong partnership in Florida with our state universities. It is one of the things that has caused us, Senator, back to your good comments last night, an analysis of the often lauded California ideal governance structure of a three-tier system. In Florida, we believe that now that we've added these bachelor's degrees, especially to fill a gap that there was a need for, a gap for in our local communities, that our 2+2 strongly articulated opportunities with our universities for our students has helped us utilize a largely two-tier system. So in the case of Broward College, now I moved there 11 years ago out of the State House. Broward College with 63,000 students is a very diverse community. Southern Florida, South Florida now, I like to call the new Lower East Side melting pot of America, with South Americans and Caribbean students coming in, and from other parts of the world. California and the West Coast, of course, has a different migration immigrant population, but my students, out of the 63,000, a third of them were not born in the United States of America. So they are coming to us rapidly from Venezuela to escape the tyranny of a horrific situation in that country, middle-class families and upper-middle-class families, and from the Caribbean, from Haiti and Jamaica and Caribbean islands that struggle. About 36% of our students are African American. About 33% of our students are Hispanic. And so white boys like me are the minority at our campus. And it's a beautiful thing. That represents our community very much as well. About 40% of our students are first-generation students. 60% roughly are qualify for Pell Grant. So underserved populations we work very closely with, and providing them access and opportunities to at least get an industry certification or other credentials is what we're all about. I'm proud to say last week we had the largest graduating class that we've ever had, with approximately 2,900 associate's degrees awarded and about 300 bachelor's degrees awarded, and lots of certificates as well. But in addition to that, we very purposefully have maintained those other parts of our relationships with our universities so that our students have opportunities to choose multiple paths. Let me note also, different from what I applaud you for what you've done, what you described, Matt, last night, is students, if they qualify now with the admission standards, can go straight into a bachelor's degree program. That's not how we set up our programs in Florida, at least so far. That could change over time, partially to alleviate the concerns by our university friends that we were going to be in direct competition for those academic achievers. So our bachelor's degrees are really targeted at the adult population. They are my nursing students, one of the largest nursing programs in America, with about 800 students, and supplying the nursing needs of, well, trying to supply the nursing needs of our community, with an average of about a 95% first-time passing rate on the NCLEX exam after 2 years, very affordable, what we all do, higher than our university nursing students with a bachelor's degree. So the training that they're getting is outstanding. But they go into the workplace, we all know this story, right? They go into the workplace with a 2-year degree. 5 or 10 years later, they would like to advance themselves, but they don't qualify for a management or supervision program because they don't have a bachelor's degree. So we create, at the request of the hospitals and the changing nature and entry-level potential down the road of bachelor's degrees in nursing, we provide the opportunity for those students to come back and complete their bachelor's degree. So the same thing for all of our bachelor's degree. You cannot get into our bachelor's degree unless you have a minimum requirement of an associate's degree. So that's something that's different. We now have after 10 years of opening up about 12 bachelor's degree programs, mostly in teacher education. That was our first ones. That's what our needs of our local school districts was. Woefully lacking in science and math in particular, and special education. And then we moved into nursing, IT, most recently aviation. We've got a full suite of aviation programs, and so a bachelor's degree really helps them as well. And we have approximately 2,500 students enrolled out of, now, so, you know, our universities and others sometimes talk about mission creep. I have 63,000 students, 2,500, less than 5% are enrolled in the bachelor's degrees. They're growing, and they may grow to be, let's say, 10% of our overall population over time if we add a few more, but still a minority part of what we do overall. Then we've maintained those partnerships with the universities. So more than that transfer to our universities, and that number has grown every year to Florida International University and Florida Atlantic University, our regional universities who are within 30-minute drive from our institutions. But our students go to UF, University of Florida as well, the flagship research institution. The best and the brightest can go to any of our universities as well as others. And then we have the other option of both Florida International and Florida Atlantic. We invited long ago to be present on our campus to offer programs in collaboration with us. So every year, you know, literally hundreds of students just walk across the quad and enroll in Florida Atlantic or Florida International University as well. So I think for us, because of the long-standing partnership and 2+2 relationship with our universities, frankly, the political power that they had, we've had to incrementally, gradually move into filling this middle gap so that our universities wouldn't feel too threatened, but also allowed us to meet some of the needs of our local community, which is difficult for the University of Florida, located in Gainesville, and frankly, a small little place up in North Florida. Somebody alluded to how, you know, our higher ed systems were set up 150 years ago when populations were very different. I mean, Tallahassee is where Florida State University is, another relatively small community, both in North Florida. When we have 5 million people in South Florida, and therefore the needs in South Florida, we also sometimes think about succeeding from the state and focusing on the needs of South Florida, as opposed to the, in many cases, much more rural communities as well. So I think I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions later on.
Is this working, y'all? Good morning. How are you? My name's Margaret Ellaby. I am Chancellor of UA Pulaski Technical College in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me first, because that may bias some of what you hear. As you can tell, I don't have a Southern accent. I was born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin, proud graduate of the University of Wisconsin. And that has, I guess, biased me. I am a girl who has the Wisconsin ideal in her heart. And someone with, and Joel, and I don't know if Joel's still here, spoke about social justice. With that, though, I started 150 years ago as an ag teacher, a vocational ag teacher in Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is in the delta of Arkansas. Anybody have been there? Okay. You need to visit. Mosquitoes as big as buzzards, and lots of rice. Very different from here. It's a different world, very different world. So with that, I did my career thing, and as Mr. Burton said, you know, how many of us have grown up to be a chancellor? It wasn't me. But I do have the honor to be the chancellor of a tremendous 2-year technical college in Central Arkansas. So I'll give you an overview of Arkansas, and it is a little bit different from what I've been learning about yesterday and today. Our state has 3 million people. 300,000 of that population has no high school education. Many of our population and our students who come to us have a third grade reading level. As far as finance, and we haven't really talked about finance, so I'm going to be the girl who jumps off into that. As far as finance, my college budget is $40 million a year for 6,000 students. We have no millage or sales tax. We receive $15 million from the state of Arkansas. That has not changed since 2008. We cannot raise tuition more than 2.1%. That was just handed to us before Christmas, and I get that. I get the politics. And we have $10 million, like Florida, that is open to all 2- and 4-year institutions in our state, and it's performance-based. And being an old basketball player, and looking at the situation at our institution, our faculty and staff welcome that opportunity to compete. In Arkansas, we have 22 community colleges, 22. We have 11 4-year institutions, public. That does not count the private, usually religious-based, 4-year colleges in our state. So we have many, many institutions. With UA Pulaski Tech, and we have a history much like UVU. After World War II, we started out as a vocational school in Little Rock, Arkansas. That then became a vocational tech, VOTech, that many of us have in our states. And in 1992, when Governor Clinton was still with us in Arkansas, he decided that the VOTechs needed to become community colleges. And I think that was a wise move. So all of a sudden, all these VOTechs made the rush to become 2-year institutions. And Pulaski Tech was no different. We became a technical college, and we're really a community college. We offer technical education as well as general ed, and it's a beautiful mixture. And so with that, our students come to us, and our profile may be a little bit different than your institution. About 80 to 85% of our students are Pell eligible. Many of our students are first generation. This trend is the same that I've heard. We have 55 to 58% of our students are African American. Many of our students are single parent. The majority of our students are part-time. They work. So that's the world that we operate in. And we were an independent institution until 2 years ago. And at that time, the UA system president, Dr. Don Bobbitt, came to us, and we started to have the conversation of joining the system. And in that transformation, we would still be a 2-year institution. And that question is something that we felt was paramount because of our mission and what we need to do for our students for their success. Now I'm going to switch hats and go political again. In Arkansas, and I'll give you a great example, in Little Rock, you have UA Pulaski Tech, in North Little Rock really, and then you have the Arkansas River, and then you have Little Rock right on the other side of the river. Not 8 miles away is the University of Arkansas Little Rock, just right across the river. And that institution long ago was known as Pine Tree Tech, and then you have Pulaski Tech. 2 different missions, very different student bodies, and at no time really a lot of collaboration between the two. One of the reasons, and we've heard this morning, as institutions go to a dual mission, it's all about first and foremost student success. How do we advance that success? In our case at UA Pulaski Tech, how do we support our faculty and staff? Our faculty and staff have not had raises or bonuses in 4 years. And that is because of the financial situation we're in. So how do we help them? How do we provide them with better opportunities for health benefits, et cetera? And then lastly, how do we, and again, Joel, same situation. You may have a sister college in Arkansas. How do we work with our community to transition this independent 2-year college into a University of Arkansas system? So we had those discussions, and away we went. And first and foremost, for our students, this is what has occurred. We have full, and Sarah said it, we have full articulation with UA system now, system schools. Whether that is the flagship 4-year institution within the University of Arkansas, the University of Arkansas Fayetteville, we have that. With the University of Arkansas Little Rock, who has a new chancellor and is trying to transform that institute more into a research institution now. How do we have our students succeed with them and transfer fully with them? And now we do. We have a Metro degree, which allows a clear articulation with that institution, which is tremendous. And that is serving our students very, very well. Second, with our employees, and we really haven't talked about employees and what this means for employees, in our case, as far as benefits. Our employees, when we had these discussions, were fully engaged. We had our faculty and staff senates fully engaged, totally transparent. I have to give kudos to Dr. Bobbitt, who is the president of our system, was made available to our campus anytime for staff senate meetings, faculty senate meetings, college conversations I had. That was hugely beneficial for our faculty and staff. They were involved in the process from day one. Day one. Secondly, our institution, we were a part as an independent of other independent 2-year institutions in Arkansas with an insurance consortium. When we pulled out, what we went to was a consortium now in the University of Arkansas system that allowed our faculty and staff greater benefits that we could never do on our own, could never do. And when you have an economic situation that we have at our institution where we can't provide what we need to provide to our faculty and staff, that was a huge benefit to them. It also is a huge benefit for us to recruit tremendous people into our 2-year institution. Lastly, as far as our community, when we started the discussions, many of us are Rotary members and all of that. I had one very strong advocate of our institution, and the gentleman is about 73, 74 years old. I'm 6'1" without my shoes on, and he is about 5'6". And he came up to me and did this. Margaret, and was hitting me right here. Don't you ever change that technical college up there on the hill. Don't you ever do it. And this was a near-death experience for me. And he is a tremendous gentleman in our community, and we have tremendous supporters in our community of our institution. And that was first and foremost, don't change. And we've heard that. Don't change that mission. Don't change your college. Don't lose that Pulaski Tech, as I call it, the family experience. And we didn't. And again, when we started down this path, we had a tremendous amount of community discussions, and that was not at the level of Red Deer, but close. And by the time we reached the date of April 11th, where we had our Board of Trustees of our independent Pulaski Tech meet to vote, they voted with approval and unanimous, as did both of our faculty and staff senates, and our community was very supportive. So since that transition, here's what's happened. The brand, and we haven't talked about branding, but the brand of the University of Arkansas and the system brand has helped our institution tremendously. And guess with who? Here's your first pop quiz, ladies and gentlemen. Wouldn't be a good chancellor without a pop quiz. Guess who? First and foremost, parents. Okay? They love it. They have the University of Arkansas affiliated with a 2-year technical college, and we emphasize quality, and they believe that's quality in addition to what we emphasize, and that has been tremendous. The second party that has loved the brand is students. No, not the legislator, not yet. We'll put those as 3. Mr. Students. And again, University of Arkansas, like Florida, University of Wisconsin, Madison, the Badgers, when they see the University of Arkansas, they see the Razorbacks and begin calling the Hogs. If you ever get to Arkansas, you have to call the Hogs. Although we are not affiliated with the University of Arkansas Fayetteville in any way, that University of Arkansas brand, the red and the white for our students, and our colors now are red, white, and blue. We saved the blue from our independent days, has meant a tremendous amount to our students to have that brand. Then we have the legislature. The legislature have believed this is cutting redundancy. And in some ways, it has. We're saving money. We receive no pot of money when we join the UA system, but it is saving us money. But that aside, what it is doing for our institution, and more importantly for our students, is offering them greater and more enhanced opportunities for success. Where we are currently with our key performance indicators, and I'll back up a little bit. I'm 6 years old as a chancellor. When I came to Pulaski Tech, we had a 28.8% default rate. Have you all ever had that at your institutions? You know what happens when you get to 30? Here's your other pop quiz. Chancellor, do you know Colorado College? The feds come visit. We had that. We had a 7% graduation rate. Anybody experience that in here? We're up to 10 now. That situation was caused by we needed to have lots of students on our campus. And that was to pay for the buildings, primarily. And we needed, when I arrived, we had 11,000 students. Open admissions. But what we found out is that open admissions, we didn't have the staff. We had, at that time, 4 advisors for 11,000 students. And so what we had to do was flip our culture. And we did successfully because of our great faculty and staff and being transparent. And what we had to show is, one, we had expectations, we had to have quality, and we had to have success for our students. Because our students were leaving with high default rate, just total disgust with higher education, and it was basically educational malpractice. So what we have done since is transition to the UA system. We have put into place more advisors, more support. Many of you have been talking about pulling hair out, or faculty have been pulling hair out, having this wide continuum of students in your class, and we have that too. may I suggest you look at AQ, professional development for your faculty. We are doing that right now. We have the best retention rate in the country for our faculty completing that. Again, I'm a competitor. And that is proving, again, to be a key to the success for our institution and for the UA system. But with that, looking ahead, do we see someday us joining University of Arkansas Little Rock across the river? I don't know. I don't know. Our missions are very, very different, but I do see the dual mission of being aligned and being very, very collaborative. That has changed dramatically in the last 2 years, and I think in another year it's going to change even more. We have a long ways to go in Arkansas. We are making those steps. Proud to be there. I welcome any of you all to come and visit. You see how I said you all? It is a great place to be. We have no mountains, but we have great hills. So I welcome any questions, and thank you again, Dr. Holleran, for these.
Well, thank you. Those were three very different, unique success stories from three different states and three very different perspectives. And I really enjoyed the presentations from each of you. We'd like to take a few minutes now and open up for questions. Does anybody want to start with a question for our panel? Okay, I want to start with one then, if you don't mind, and I'm going to go in a little bit different direction. You know, Margaret, you kind of alluded to this a little bit in your presentation, but I'd be curious to get your thoughts. You know, we're talking about dual mission, you know, certificate, 2-year, 4-year, and so forth. But also we have an issue of the preparation of our students for success in those programs. And so I'd be curious as to what your thoughts might be about the mission of the institutions moving down into sort of the pre-college years and working with local school districts and others to prepare our students to be successful. Anybody want to?
Well, I'll jump in. We are working very extensively right now with our sending districts in Greater Little Rock. And we're doing that through a number of ways. One, we have early college that we're working with. Two, we are making headway in providing career coaches from our institution to the Little Rock School District and Pulaski County School District. That has made a huge dent on that. Our college, and I'm sure like many of you, offer many camps during the summer. And it's not basketball camps or football camps. We have STEM camps, we have fine art camps, we're doing all of that. The other aspect that we're working with, and we're going to be seeing it starting in the new academic year, fall, spring, and next summer, we are aligning our professional development with the school district's professional development and having that on our campus. So as for example, our English faculty are working on curriculum alignment, curriculum improvement, we're going to have the English language arts faculty from Little Rock School District do that with us. We believe that we have to have that curriculum articulation, those skill development taken place. The other thing we're doing, and it was mentioned yesterday, all of our programs are on pathways where we have stacked certificates. We're backing that down into the 9-12 level of grades too.
I think some of the greatest work we still have the opportunity to do in our community is with our school district. We've made great progress with them, higher transfer rates now, dual enrollment courses. We've grown tremendously. About 4,000 students will take at least one dual enrollment course with us this year. We have a collegiate academy where some of the best and brightest whose families can't afford to go to private schools that are very expensive, but our students in our collegiate academy that's a partnership with the school district outperform every high school in Broward County. We're going into the schools more to early admit them and to help them with financial aid because so many of them needed in the summer camps, absolutely. And I want to just say, if I can take 1 minute to brag about our college, and this is part of what presidents are required to do, right, President Holland? So I did want to mention that we're very proud that we got recognized, for those of you who are in more of the community college world, by the Aspen Institute this past week as one of the top 10 finalists again. It's our third time to be recognized, and I'm proud of this because Josh Weiner, who's the executive director, in his comments about why we were selected this year, says, and I'm quoting him, this is not me, this is Josh, Broward's decade-long reform is built on a culture of results with systems that link everyone's job to the goals of student success. Among the most impressive things the college has done is build clear program pathways that effectively connect students to good careers and four-year transfer, both as a part of our dual mission as well. So Broward's graduation and transfer rate is 48%, which is 8 percentage points above the national average. Impressively, Broward's 46% graduation transfer rate for students of color is a full 12 percentage points above the national average. There's virtually no gap in the 3-year graduation transfer rates between all Broward students and students of color, and with strong relationships to four-year partners, as I mentioned earlier, with tailored advising services between the two of us, it helps the students transition and prevent some of that transfer leakage that we talk about that is still real. And then finally, Broward has developed clear course sequences for all of its programs, each aligned to one of 8 career clusters and supported by strong advising systems so that students understand the connection of their studies to their careers and can efficiently complete degrees with minimum excess credits. So final linkage back on that then to the high schools. Part of what we think we've done relatively effectively, but we need to do it so much more, is build career academies into the high schools to expose earlier and earlier our high school students to something that has meaning and value to them. And that linkage then extends into programs that we have like aviation. You know, students still, I remember when my son was in 5th grade not too long ago, going and doing what we all do, speak to the 5th grade class, and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you still get the either basketball player, football player, or doctor and lawyer. And they don't know the wide range of other options that they have. So the earlier we get into high schools, middle schools, and at least expose them to program and career opportunities, the better.
In Grand Junction, you get professional rodeo too. But I would say two simple things, and it's partly we're geographically isolated, and so we end up doing things. But we use ACT cut scores, and then we have developmental faculty embedded in the respective high schools in our region who actually, rather than asking an algebra teacher or math teacher, oh, you need to teach your course as well as catching these other students up. So we actually do English and math developmental or remedial courses in the high schools, so then when they graduate, they're ready to go. And then a couple of years ago, copying the Aspen community, we've actually hired and embedded career and college counselors in each of the area high schools. Fairly significant cost to us, but really, you know, today's high school counselors don't have time to do career and college counseling, and so our arrangement with the school district is we'll put them on our dime, but they will stay as our employees, primarily because, and we were fairly blunt in this, they are not going to do parking lot duty, they're not going to staff basketball games, and let me be even rougher, when you have a suicide, they're not going to do suicide counseling, they're going to stay on just career and college counseling, period, 24/7, every day. And so those two things are really, I think, in terms of how do you try to get students headed the right direction, and then when they graduate that they're college ready.
Thank you. And any other questions? Yes, President?
Question for Tim. Your model describes something that we often wrestle with: is should we keep the dual mission but make it more distinct and split out with names and faculty and maybe even locations? We've gone the other direction. We've asked that question repeatedly, but we've ended up on this, stay more fully integrated. So I wonder if you could say just a little bit more about the extent to which you're separated, what you've spoken about what sort of gains you get from that in terms of signaling to students, but are there costs for on the efficiency side? Where do you have duplication or not have duplication? Just say a little bit more about the pluses and minuses of that direction over the integrated direction.
So it is an outwardly facing solution. It's branding, it's marketing, there's a community college in town, like I said, totally different logo, totally different colors and everything else. It comes with a significant amount of frustration for academics. Faculty, it's so confusing. Staff, how do we do this? How's that work? The little bit of duplication, we have had to go to different admissions recruiters for the two different missions. Our four-year recruiters really find it. At one point I said, guys, you can just go change your shirt and come out in the morning at the college fair, be in blue, and in the afternoon you can be in maroon. And that was facetious. That was not going to work. And so, in fact, and you appreciate in a community college, what do you, 60-mile radius or thereabouts. And so we actually have a couple of recruiters, and all they do is community college. It's a little bit of a stretch for us to say to our four-year recruiters, you can at least carry some of the brochures from Western Colorado Community College, and if somebody asks, you, of course, could hand that and say, here's a card. I think they have acquiesced in that, but the struggle really is internal. Externally, and my frustration, the senator asked, accrediting bodies drive more cost than anything else, in my opinion, whether regional accrediting bodies or program-specific accrediting bodies are huge cost drivers. If, in fact, we were going to hand a WCCC diploma to a student, our accrediting body says you have to have two different governing boards, two different presidents, and so they would drive us to the duplication. We've argued with them and said that makes no sense. We're doing this now. It just is a matter of our students from the community college would really like to get a blue and white diploma that says Western Colorado Community College, and they're stuck in that accreditation world, and so there's that point of frustration. But really, it's more internal than it is with faculty, and I was astonished because this one professor and a number of professors grumbled so long and hard about this wide spectrum of students that they have to teach. And I took it serious enough that we finally said, okay, we are going to set up parallel sections, and their reaction of, please don't do that, was shocking to me. And I said, okay, I get it. It's hard to do because you're teaching both of them, but in their core, they truly believed that if they were going to take a 200-level sociology course, that they should both have mastered the same content. And their fear was, if you segregate them, then you'd be able to say that, but they didn't believe that would really be the truth, particularly for a college-level algebra or something else. And so it's really more outwardly facing. And campus-wise, one of the struggles we have is, if you look in Colorado, and notwithstanding the Mountain College, which has beautiful places, community colleges in Colorado that have residential opportunities are not in pretty towns. They're in places like La Junta, Lamar, Trinidad, Sterling, Rangeley. And so we do get some metro area students who want to do a 2-year experience and want to come live with us because it's a prettier campus, prettier town, larger city. And we don't tell them no, but that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to be that open enrollment for our region. And so we do combat a little bit because that undercuts, sort of our brand, if you will, that they're going to go off to Grand Junction, and then you're trying to recruit students from that same area to come to the university.
Question in the back?
Hi. So in listening to the different speakers we've had today, it sounded like there's two common models for the dual mission, right? So some is you have a 2-year institution that kind of expands the range of offerings to 4 years and then maybe adding master's or even PhD programs. And then the second is to have kind of a merger like you had where Pulaski Tech and University of Arkansas Little Rock kind of, come together into a common sharing, you have two different institutions, but you merge together and have a partnership. So I am at an institution that doesn't fit either of those very well. I come from Nevada State College, which is in Henderson, Nevada. And Nevada, back around 2000, they decided they were going to follow the California 3-tier model, where we were supposed to have the research ones, the community colleges, and then the state college was going to be in the middle, like the CSU systems. The downside was we never got the same amount of money as a California CSU would, and then we hit the recession, right? And so we are very dedicated. I mean, when you were talking about Pulaski, like we have many of the same types of students, right? First generation, working, non-traditional, coming back, or they're 18 and they're helping their parents pay the mortgage, right? Even though they're the traditional age, they're very non-traditional in the different priorities they have and the different challenges. So we're not in a position, we don't have the resources to partner with a community college because quite honestly, we don't have anything to offer them. We don't have enough money to allow them to have services they couldn't have on their own. On the other hand, we didn't start out as a 2-year college, so we don't already have a robust set of vocational programs that we could build from. We have done some partnerships like 3+1 degrees with the community college, where students in allied health, they might do 3 years of a diagnostic sonography program, and then they come to us for some of those soft skills, liberal arts, communication, interpersonal negotiations, things like that at the end to be bachelor qualified. But that's just a few, and they're still very separate. Students go through 2 different financial aid systems, 2 different admission systems, things like that. And so I guess I was just wondering what vision you might see for a school like ours that isn't big enough to offer something to a community college, but also doesn't have our own internal vocational programs we can build from. I could certainly imagine how we might introduce a 2-year program in the liberal arts because it doesn't require you necessarily to build out a lot of new infrastructure as it would for instance, a culinary program. But I also don't know that that's where the most value would be. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts about what a school like mine, about 4,000, mid-level, under-resourced, how might we dip into this dual mission world?
I would tell you my heart goes out to you like it does to Wisconsin, because taking a 4-year and going, huge challenge because you're going to battle everybody on campus because you're going to devalue the brand and everything else. But the same folks who work at a school like yours or like ours really in their heart have that, how do you create opportunities for students? I would be selective in terms of a couple of vocational programs, try to do it in concert with the school district. I'm going to guess the school district probably has welding, automotive, what have you, and so you could partner with them, which is partly what we've done with our BOCES. We actually set up a board where they appoint 2, we appoint 2, and then together they appoint 3 business folks. We've never had anything but a unanimous vote on that board. But then all of a sudden you're leveraging off of, and you can offer those technical vocational degrees. And a lot of those high school students, quite frankly, are going to be way better off, and with a little bit more can receive a 1-year certificate from a college, which is going to put them in a much better spot. And so I think you can tiptoe in on the vocational technical side. The transfer degree piece, you can do that already, and so I'm not sure that's much value, and from where I sit would not be much value add. And so I think if you built that, and then the Bachelor of Applied Science, we really talk about blue collar hands, white collar head. And we always make this assumption that 2-year students are not these. I can show you test scores and GPAs from kids who come to our community college that would put everybody else to shame, and they just aren't interested in getting a bachelor's degree. They really want to come do whatever it is. It's a lot more tactile, a lot more hands-on, and so I think you can do a lot with building those students, and a lot of them, and they go to aviation programs, those sorts of things. Aviation would be really expensive, but if you just looked at, and my guess is machining is going to be a huge demand in your region. It is in ours. It is across the state or the country. Welding, again, same. Automotive, because of the technology and the computer science that goes into it now, would be pretty straightforward. And I think you could, with a modest amount of investment, really amp up what the school district does and create that partnership. And my guess is when you start to do that, if there's a community college in the region, and I would say to them, we're going to do this unless you want to come do this with us. If they're smart enough, they're going to recognize that's going to be a problem for them, and they're going to want to step up and come provide those. And you have a campus, you have facilities, you have a location, and you have something to help them attract students. So I think you got a lot to offer, and I'd probably try and do it from that perspective.
Just building on that very briefly, just go have a conversation with them. You may find out that community college or community colleges in your region have ideas about programs that they would like to start, but they don't have the resources. And collaboratively, you may build from scratch a program like we did with a number of universities in supply chain and logistics, which there's huge demands for. Or maybe they might not have a cybersecurity program yet, or a data analytics program. Some wonderful things we heard from, was it Dixie State last night, that you've started in those areas. And to build a 2+2 system together where you can collaborate on design of a new curriculum, perhaps.
This comment is taking that another step and see what your community wants. You know, what's of value to them? What can you offer with this new idea? The other avenue, you could talk to that community college and say, hey, is there any way we can start a collaborative effort with a career center, high school career center on either one of the campuses, and how both of you can offer that opportunity for high school students, and then use that as not only a good educational opportunity, but a great recruitment tool for both institutions. And then call if you need help.
Okay, I think we're probably just about out of time, so I want to just extend our thanks to our three speakers for taking the time out of their very busy schedules to come and be with us today. So thank you very much for being here.